Welcome back to the Difference Engine podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Oakes. Today, I'm going to share about negotiation. It's one of my favorite topics. Most people think negotiation is reserved for people in suits on top level floors of skyscrapers, but negotiation is something we do every single day. We do it with spouses, loved ones, kids, people at work, bosses, employees. All the time, negotiations going on. If you don't know that it's going on, then you're probably not very good at it. So you might want to pay attention. I'm going to talk about a principle that was probably more popularized by Dale Carnegie and How to Win Friends and Influence People, but it's been around for a lot longer than that. And it is the concept of thinking about what the other person wants. Generally, people have a very hazy idea of what they want themselves. If you can figure out what would be intrinsically valuable to them and find a way to get there for them, probably they're going to go with your solution first, and you can make it leaned in your favor, right? That could be you proactively thinking about what you're willing to exchange for that and what you're not, so you can control the conversation on how to get to that end result you want with them. That's what a negotiation is. The people who are bad at negotiations go in thinking only about what they want, and they drive hard to get there and end up being very narrow-minded, and they don't come in with options, I'll say that. They're coming in just to get this one thing, and so all the options that are offered are new to them, and they have to think about it on the spot and evaluate them because they haven't done the proactive thinking required. So Carnegie in How to Win Friends talks about this a lot in keeping somebody else in mind. But when I coach and my colleagues who are coaches use this acronym, we call it WIFM. It's everyone's favorite radio station. What's in it for me? If you ask yourself at any given situation, what's in it for me? What's in it in the other person's sense? Like step out of your shoes, take one step to the left, and realize that you're not coming from your perspective. You need to come from their perspective. Why that's powerful is everyone has different motivators. Now, there's a lot of different thoughts on motivation, and you could watch tons of videos on it, read books on it. There's some good books out there. One's called Drive. I talk about motivators usually from the perspective of a DISC assessment, which is a personality behavioral assessment. There's 7 motivators, main motivators in the DISC assessment, and one of them is altruism, which you can imagine is philanthropy and giving back, donating, giving your time, making a difference, having community impact. If someone has a really low altruism motivator, they're going to be harder to sway towards a cause that is just pulling on the goodness of their heart. Doesn't make them bad people necessarily. It just means that they are hardwired to not care as much about that as somebody else. There are other ones that are based off of like aesthetic harmony, meaning if a physical space is disorganized, colored badly, the paint's messed up, or it's messy and disheveled and there's no congruity there, it will hurt them a lot more to stay in that space from a psychological standpoint than most other people. And so it gets really subtle how this plays out all the time. One of the motivators is how much you care about knowledge. So those people who naturally are inclined to seek knowledge out as a way of being. And as soon as I have a problem when I go through thrift stores, not just picking up a book because it's $2 for all the secrets in this thing that I could read, and I put it in my stack of books and don't read it. So there are people who are drawn toward things specifically, and it gets really nuanced. Like there's a lot of complexity to this. So if you don't spend the time, not that you have to do an assessment on every single person you enter a negotiation with, but if there are people you negotiate with on a regular basis, such as family members, you might want to know what's operating underneath the surface of the water in their psychology sometimes. It might be useful. Same thing with a long-term career. If you have a boss that you just can't figure out exactly why they always want it done this exact way, it probably has something to do with an intrinsic motivation in them. And the likelihood of yours matching theirs, that's the mistake people make in negotiation. They think everybody approaches it like they do. And the reality is probably no one does, or very few. The likelihood of you coming into a negotiation with a person who sees things exactly the same way as you is very low. is very low. So to be aware of what else motivates people, some people are very economic. They just want an ROI. That doesn't mean money necessarily. It could mean an ROI on their time, an ROI on their energy. They want to see a fair exchange, which would be kind of like the opposite of philanthropy or altruism, where you just want the feeling of giving. You want to be able to pour into something with your energy and resources. Someone who has a high economic motivator is going to want to see a return for it. Now, that could mean both people could be motivated to donate, but the person with a high economic motivator might be motivated to donate because they want their name stamped on top of a statue, or they want a plaque with a bunch of other people they respect on that statue as well, something like that. So it can lead to the same result, which is how negotiations enter. Because if I coach a nonprofit for business, and if they were to approach someone who had very low altruism, very high economic motivation, and they talked about giving out of the goodness of their heart and wanting to just bless people, not very likely to sway that person. Maybe on some factors of their upbringing, or because it's a cause that's near and dear to them from a loved one, maybe. But if they have a high economic motivator, intrinsically what they're going to care about is what's the return on it? Do I get to become friends with somebody else who's also part of this nonprofit who could turn into a good relationship? And that could be seen. I mean, a lot of people will probably hate on that and say that's shark mentality, or that's heartless, or things like that. People are generally the way that they are, though. And it's not so much about a moral standpoint as it is like, when I say intrinsic, there's something in their psychology and genetic makeup that drives them toward a thing as a resource, or drives them toward a thing as a reward. So you can fight it all you want or naysay it, but the reality is, if you're overlooking this or bad-mouthing it, you're probably not using it and being aware of it. And one of the people you need to be most aware of with this is yourself. Because motivators can be pitfalls on the other side. Our strengths can become our weaknesses when we use it to such an extent that we overuse it or over-rely on it. And it's likely that the people you're closest to have somewhat opposite motivators. So if they're living in their most intense phase or season or mode of their motivators, and so are you, that means you're probably pretty disparate. You're pretty far apart in what you're both trying to achieve, or how you're trying to achieve it. An example of this is my wife and I, we like to watch Survivor now, and it's one of the shows we've gotten into. And this couple developed a romance on the show. They kind of fell for each other in spite of themselves. They were trying not to develop feelings, and they did. So in the show, I could tell by watching him and how he plays and how he interacts with others that he has a personality that's conflict avoidant. He cares about keeping peace in relationships, and he is people-oriented, relationship-oriented. And from watching her, I can tell that she is more outcomes-focused and less connected. Not that she's not connected to people, but she cares more about how things turn out and is more task-oriented than he is. And so they just had this development where he had to keep her out of a plan to make the plan go right. And he opted for protecting his relationship with her over the plan going right, which she then leaked the plan to the one person that she was not supposed to, blew the plan apart. I mean, it ruined it for him. It made all kinds of chaos. And then in the very next episode, ironically, the positions were flipped, where she developed a plan that he should have known about on relationship terms. It would have been really great to protect their relationship if she had told him. And she chose not to tell him, and he lost his closest ally because of it. And he was the only person that didn't know. So she leaked his plan and then also left him out of the plan to get rid of his closest person. And that is because she has operating within her psychology this need and want to win at all costs. She has a task orientation and a drive for outcomes that supersedes his. He chose to keep his relationship with her peaceful and conflict-free and to trust, and she chose to make the outcome play. You could say it's right or wrong, but the reality is it's human psychology and motivation at the core of it. And if you don't know those things going on, these people are playing for $1 million on a gigantic reality TV show, and they don't know really what's at stake, what's going on under the surface, under the hood, even for themselves, probably. So I have lots more I could say on it, but I'll park it there. If you have questions or want to know more about motivators, you can reach out to me on the Difference Engine, any platform. That's my handle. Have a great week.